Warning. Warning. You are about to enter the propaganda report.
That's right.
With Brad Binkley.
That's right.
Warning. Warning.
You have entered the propaganda report with Brad Binkley. And we're going to talk about the Kirk assassination because that's what has been dominating the news, that along with Kash Patel's testimony to Congress today and just the state of society in general in the aftermath of a lot of this and many, many other things going on. Very emotional, traumatic things going on in the world right now that is kind of right in our face. I am Brad Binkley, as you know, and joining me today to talk about these subjects and possibly more, wherever the conversation goes, is Teace Snyder. We bring him up. Teace, what's going on? Teace is a filmmaker, and he is the host of Conspiracy Synergy, and he just made a documentary recently. Teace and I were both at the Third Eye Carnival in Tennessee with mud-filled performance going on underneath a lightning storm and a tornado, which was quite amazing, and it was an awesome event. Teace, first of all, just how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
I'm always impressed when I've gotten to be on shows with you, and I've watched some of your shows at just how eloquent you are and how knowledgeable you are with your ability to speak about these subjects. And you're doing Conspiracy Synergy, which is a lighthearted way to look at some of the dark subjects. We have some dark subjects going on right now. Tell us more about Conspiracy Synergy.
Yeah, sure. The first 8 episodes are basically like quick educational curriculum for your friends and family or anyone who's kind of a teenager and up who wants to understand what's up and how things actually work. That's what the first 8 episodes of Conspiracy Synergy are. And it's like me with rabbit puppets and cartoons and delightful, wonderful, upbeat stuff that gives you positive vibes about the idea of saving the world. And that's the, storytelling device I end up using is it's a puppet-filled video game about saving the world. And that's the first 8 episodes. And then the second part of that in the last 5, and now I'm currently working on the 6th, are mini documentaries. And those go into individual content creators. And the entire premise between the first introductory curriculum part and then the second mini documentary part is that it makes it so that it's something that you can like give to the people who are just starting to get it, just starting to wake up, and then they can get it really quickly and dive right into the conversation that we're having in the orbit of conversations in the alternative media altogether. The real alternative media, that is, not like the crappy fake ones that are basically just doing it 5 or 10 years later when it's safe. And even then,
right. After all of us have been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like sometimes conspiracy theorists, and I know I've been guilty of this, can talk to people who aren't familiar with conspiracies, and they can just kind of unload all the craziest stuff in one sitting. And this sounds more, instead of a vomiting of information, more of meeting them where they are and taking them to, a more kind, almost leading them out of the cave.
It's like joke, reward, joke, fact, joke, reward, joke, like fact. It's kind of like playing it, yes, in a way where you're meeting them where they are, but also understanding that if you don't tickle people's funny bone about this stuff, it'll get pretty anxious pretty quick, and then they'll just like clock out.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic way to look at it. And it's unfortunate that the comedians who used to do stuff like that on the late nights, and I would say on both sides at this point, not all comedians, obviously, but in the mainstream, they've gotten so political that the disdain or anger that they feel for the other side, for me, it makes it not fun or not funny, and I think it just plays into some of the divisiveness, which that kind of feels like what some of that stuff is intended to do. But to use it as a way to kind of open people's eyes, I think you have to laugh at this stuff. I think everything should be laughed at a little. I mean, not in the right circumstances, obviously. But what inspired you to start this?
First time I was on the Corbett Report was like 13 or 14 years ago
Yeah.
for a short film called Blindfold, and that's like a narrative fiction that it's the thesis film that I did when I went to film school in New York, and I went there to create that. So I've been doing this for a really long time in the sense of creating media that touches on truth-related content or conspiracy kind of themed or controversy themed narratives, stuff like that. And so I've been doing that in one capacity or another my entire life, basically. I started doing the introductory kind of like dabblings of what became Conspiracy Synergy, the build up to lockdowns happening, like COVID or whatever hadn't been announced, even though COVID's not a real thing. It was more just the declaration of everyone going crazy at the same time and locking us all in our houses around that era. I was already working on the artwork for a number of the different things, like the Les Millennials, which is a play on Les Miserables, and no, it disappears if you click that. But a bunch of that different artwork I was already like doing, and those. It's, if you've ever done anything creative, kind of tends to work that way. A lot of the time, it's like it'll give you little bits that like you can use later. Like if you're writing a screenplay or anything that you happen to be working on, it can kind of assemble it as you go through life, and it'll almost just like come to you, or you'll work with it. And it was one of those things. And that's because over the course of my entire life and the building of all those different skill sets in the narrative dynamic and the telling of the story of life, I'm also trying to get people to actively do things about it, not just to sit there on the receiving end of it and be like, oh, here's more to learn, here's more to be depressed about, whatever. No, it's more like, okay, here's the actual situation that we're in, and there's a lot that we can do about it. And that's the really powerful thing about using the storytelling, even if it's nonfiction, it's still telling a story, as the mechanism to engage other people, because then they can be really receptive to it and empowered by it rather than deflated from it and just throw their hands up and give up or just
black-pilled, really. Yeah. So what are some of the practical solutions that you like to offer people?
Well, I mean, it's just really understanding that this is, unfortunately, it's a war of attrition, one, so it's not going to go away, or it's going to be not going to be one tomorrow. That's not going to happen. It's going to be there next year and the year after that and the year after that, and that's the reality of it. So you need to understand that it's granular in the way in which it works, that you'll see pivots and fluctuations in individual people that you need to think of more highly than we would necessarily the Hollywood painting or portrayal of what we think of it in a movie. You know, go to a movie, you expect there to be some kind of like big villain and climax and blah, 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 whatever. That's more like the stage distractions that are set up. The reality is that a win, what that would look like is someone realizing in and of like their own volition, their own like, hey, I've come to this decision, rather than having it forced on them through coercion or something like that, but voluntarily realizing that we need to do things in a decentralized, counter-economic, anti-government, more just like objective morality oriented dynamic by which we pivot the entire framework of society. And you do that by decommissioning the pre-existing system so that you eviscerate it once it lacks our participation. At the exact same time, we're kind of up against the pendulum swing of the timetable that's been set by these psychopath billionaires or whatever, because they're trying to replace us with the machine that once we're locked into, it's kind of just a bad dystopian future. And we don't want to see that happen. So we're trying to do what we can while we can. And that's kind of just the situation we're in. Yeah.
And replace us by the machine. You're referring to AI?
Yeah, I mean, like literally everything about whether you're living in a cybernetics environment, whether you're living in like this large, like moral relativist superstructure that we were all born into that is government. It's all machine-like. Is more way for your show. This fucking guy. All right, well, that is Steve McCoynan or whoever hijacked his social media for joining us here today. Yeah, I co-host AM Wake Up with that guy on Wednesdays, and Brad's been on that with us.
Yeah, Steve said totally jealous that Teace is more awake for your show than his own.
Yeah, I've got apparently like.
I've always found you both engaging. I love being on that show with y'all and stuff. It's a great show.
Yeah, it's fun having you. Thanks for being on. Yeah.
If right now the AI, the social media aspect of it in response to the Kirk shooting is, first of all, just the in-your-face aspect of what happened. That it's the JFK. It's kind of at a distance. Is a Zapruder film. It's not as graphic, and people weren't watching it all over and over, zoomed in, telling you to find all the little clues and details for whatever that may or may not be legit. But it does require you to watch the most traumatic assassination that anybody's ever seen in their life up close on slow motion, which is literally a form of psychological torture that is illegal under international law, yet people are doing it to themselves. on social media. And I think that and the ability for it to spread. And then you have the AI aspect of people are relying on Grok to give it information. Even I heard Alex Jones cite Grok as a source of information the other day. When Grok is telling you that Charlie Kirk, that he's still alive and fine, that was a meme on some of his answers. That was a clobbered together. That was one of the answers it gave to somebody who said, could he survive this? It said, no, that was just a meme that they put it together. He's perfectly fine. He's still doing his thing. And I see all these people relying on Grok more and more without double checking the sources of it, but accepting it and then promoting it. And it's kind of an AI takeover of research and of what reality people believe, and replacing people's ability to research with unproven AI. Have you noticed this going on?
Just like that in the comment section on Twitter, anytime something happens, the first thing people will do is to ask Grok about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time. And I get that it's helpful in certain things, but man, who stops at the answer? I guess the confirmation bias that it satisfies. It's like, well, that's what I wanted to hear. I'm not going to check the sources. I'm not going to check and see that the source is Reddit or some random comment with no likes from a egg profile. And it's just baffling to me, the desire to want the explanation to be this, okay, trans, Israel, Trump, what was the other one? Nick Fuentes followers, and the seeking out of confirming evidence for whatever it is people want to be, and then I'm not looking at anything else. What do you think about the power that psychologically this kind of weapon of AI has over people's ability to satisfy that sweet confirmation bias and avoid cognitive dissonance?
Yeah, I mean, like if we're talking about AI as like something that's sentient versus something that's a large language model versus something that just models our language, the more in which we simply engage with it, which would be something like Twitter, all the way to then kind of like the echo chambers that we personally choose, whether we're online or offline. What happens online is increasingly polarizing people and putting them into kind of like cult-like echo chambers, once again, that sort of just cross-pollinate with the algorithm, and the algorithm is then determining, like, I want to say it in a way where it's like determining, but determinating, almost right. Like it's a play on Terminator, because that's sort of what's happening, but it's in like a passive way. And so we don't see it like it's that Skynet kind of phenomena, but that's exactly what it is. And so the gradual encroachment of that on the perceptual lens of reality itself is kind of like the slow drip acid bath that will acclimate us for the next 5 to 10 years from now, which will be a polar leap from where we are currently. Think of like the internet now versus what it was when it first started out. When it first started up, it would scream at you if you picked up the phone while you were using it. That gives it's a very different time. And so that gives you a sense of the digital integration of systems and the bio digital integration and all these different very science fiction concepts are nevertheless very real things. And so it's like the AI thing isn't just this far off. Think of it, it's almost like the black, or I can't use that because it's an occult term. Sorry. Okay. So just think of like negative impulse in existence, and it's pulling us in a bad way, but it creates an environment around it. And then an environment around it is every bit as dangerous as it. That's more of how I think of AI. It's the environment that it creates in us as people. And that's very much by design, from this large evil entity that is rearing its head through humanity. That's the closest I can get to describe it.
It's become so normal now. It's obviously there's been a very strong push to make it feel normal, and it's not good. It's not like it's earned some normality. It's not like it's really been super beneficial or helpful. It's been pretty destructive, I think, unless you want it to write you a haiku. Make a bullet point list. Other than that, it's just caused people to lose their ability to ask questions and think that they can use that to lean on, when all you have to do is ask it a question in a different way and you'll get a different answer. And it's just such an easy way to make people think they're finding the right information by asking a directed question, knowing it's going to try and satisfy it. Like South Park, the way they kind of mimicked it, where I don't know if you saw the last episode, but the guy was trying to start a business, and he's like, I have this business, and it was something ridiculous. And AI was like, oh, that's a great idea. Want to bang out a business plan? And it just creates this stupid global business that means nothing. But he felt like he was doing something the whole time. I feel like that's the way people are doing research about conspiracies. So it's actually almost a personalized response to the questions each individual confirmation bias seeking satisfaction ask. And that leads to people just going crazy. And when it comes to Charlie Kirk, you have people who some are celebrating it. Obviously, I think that's terrible, but they're posting information that only shows partial quotes and partial videos that I don't know if they got it from AI or their influencer on the left that tells them, that gives them what they need to continue justifying what they want. I would say so on the right as well with, there's just so much going on here where the entire thing seems like it's designed to tear America apart. Like, if this were a psyop, the whole Charlie Kirk assassination in the response to it, if I were a psychological psyop creator, right now I'd be in my castle in the sky going, everything's working perfectly. You're all reacting exactly as we planned. and you can tell people that. You can show people this. That's like, to understand that this leads to that, and now you're acting the way the left act and the right's acting. It's just a complete flip. But it's like, I don't care. I'm so fucking angry that everybody's getting short-circuited who is on this social media. I don't know. Social media is useful. Like, we met each other through social media. We get to do shows like this, but without the ability to balance it, I think it can be very dangerous. I didn't mean to go on that rant. Tell me, I want to know about the documentary you made with Charlie Robinson before we go further on that. Sure. I know that's your latest documentary, and I love Charlie. He does such an awesome work.
Yeah, so just like talk about it, like what it's about and stuff.
Yeah, just tell our listeners what it's about. And
so like, if you haven't seen Conspiracy Synergy, it's a very different vibe than just like when I talk. When I talk about stuff, I tend to be kind of long-winded and go into it in a way that it's very technical and uses a lot of metaphor. Conspiracy Synergy is more just like built in a media literacy that people are accustomed to. And that's what I wanted to lend as far as the film language that I used for the mini documentaries. Mini documentaries, they feel like something you'd watch on Netflix, basically. It's like, okay, that's what people expect, basically. They don't care about something unless it's a certain sophistication of portrayal, a certain sophistication of branding, which is unfortunate, but that's the reality. So when it came to not only the selecting of the individuals who I feel are doing an exemplary job, because that is itself their brand, you're taking on their brand, which is for Charlie, his books that he wrote, Octopus of Global Control, Controlled Demolition of the American Empire, which is one that's prominently featured in that documentary about him. And that's because it's basically coming true. And that's something that he co-authored with Berwick, who hosts Anarchapulco, which I was lucky to go to in order to be able to film Charlie as he co-hosted that event, or he was one of the MCs, one of the people who was talking at the event on stage. So I got to see Charlie do that and ultimately do a bufo ceremony, which is smoking some serious hallucinogens and then tapping out. And I get to see him going through that trip and sharing that with everyone. And that's kind of just how I leave that documentary. And that's just available on YouTube or on conspiracysynergy.com for anyone who wants to see those mini documentaries. But the idea is that it's a 22-minute overall portrayal of his life, of the situation that's happening in all of our lives. And it's something that is emotionally calibrated so we can share it with the people that we know who maybe they're starting to figure it out a little bit, but they don't really know where to go. And that's a good road is, hey, how about Charlie Robinson? How about macroaggressions? How about Controlled Demolition of the American Empire, or Octopus of Global Control, or Activist Post? And that's what these little documentaries are designed to do, is give people kind of slices of the community so that they can take that in, and then really quickly they'll be up to speed.
And Charlie has a pretty positive attitude about things, and a sincerity about him that I think is a good entrance for people as well. So I think people should definitely check out the documentary, check out Charlie's work, Conspiracy Synergy. ConspiracySynergy.com is the website, correct? Yeah. You guys check that out. It's, we got to find new ways to get information to people, and just keep ourselves sane, because everything I think is intended to kind of, at least in in the mainstream, or the effect of it is anyway, is to demoralize people. I did notice you posting around September 11th that you were at the memorial for the 10th anniversary of September 11th, and you were protesting and you got removed or something.
Yeah, that's just like a 2-minute clip from what I used to do is I'd wear an American flag as a blindfold, and then I'd stand at Ground Zero in New York on September 11th, holding out DVDs or cards for people to take in order to be able to promote 9/11 truth. And that's what the DVDs were. It was like Blueprint for Destruction. And so that was me sharing an event to basically just contextualize how controlled the optics of mainstream protest around any given event of significance actually is. They were just identifying us by the clothes we were wearing, pulling us out of the crowd, giving us a personal police escort a few blocks back to a safe protest zone that was penned off because of the fake terror threats that were called in for the anniversary in New York. And so it was one of those citywide hunt kind of environments that was created in order to step on and extinguish civil liberties. The premise being like the optics of how we think if you are protesting for something, people will be able to see that. It'd be like, you don't understand. At the same time, you can be issued removal orders from large-scale municipal police forces in order to make it so that you're never able to be seen. And it's little nuanced things like that are happening all the time. And so it's just sharing an example of that from my life.
Well, do you mind if we play it?
It's really boring. I mean, it's just like walking behind them for like a minute and a half.
I see the cops standing around you. It's just. Yeah, we'll just go quickly through it.
Okay, do it at like 4 times speed.
Yeah, I'll do fast
make
speed.
Fun of it as it happens.
I like this kind of stuff. So
okay, there's nothing going on while it happens, but okay, sure.
We'll make it quick. I actually really like this kind of stuff. I think this is
okay. Walking behind people 10 years ago, or no, even more.
Right, but it's relevant because the September 11th just happened, and
yeah, I used to protest that all the time. It's been an interesting evolution of the community. Nothing really happened from an audio perspective.
So that's where they're directing you guys out of there. Cops in front are telling you guys where to
go. It was like that the entire time.
Okay, yeah. It's interesting to me that they would focus on you guys. You guys weren't doing anything.
Well, they had like Barry Soetoro, who we know as Barack Obama, there in order to be able to do the large memorial refresher. And like I experienced this firsthand, like protesting. It was basically this. And from there, the rest of the video, they just walk us up the street, put us in a pen, and then the cop realizes we're filming them, and my friend turns off the camera. But like the basic idea is like I saw an evolution of the social dynamics surrounding the protest of 9/11 because I did it on the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th anniversary of this particular brand of protest. And on like the 9th anniversary, I was able to get rid of 100 DVDs in less than 5 minutes, and everyone was thanking me for them. Think of like that like environment of protest, and that's at Ground Zero. I'm there wearing an American flag as a blindfold, handing those things out first thing in the morning in a Wall Street crowd, and everyone's very appreciative and thankful for that. Juxtapose that with the next year when you're getting pulled out of the fucking crowd, and then you're being put in a pen off-site. They clamp down on positive sentiment that's happening and a public awareness, and they replace that with sort of celebrations or anniversaries or large-scale events to keep us in a particular margin of compliance.
And that was back when they were every anniversary you would see nothing but the old news clips and everything. They don't really do that as much anymore. So that's when they were still really hammering home the official story propaganda. So they let you do it, but then Barack Obama's there, and Barack Obama, they can use a justification for there could be a threat. We need to protect the area.
No, it's because it's the 10th anniversary. There are a bunch of fake like terror things that are called in, and then they take it seriously. Wolf Blitzer's like, I know it's going to happen, man. Like everyone's freaking out in their own particular way. So they have the cops searching cars all over the city for car bombs and other things, and like basically just making everyone try and like relapse on the fear. It's if you think of like the way this is done by the power elite or whatever the hell you want to call these assholes, it's like it's almost like over long periods of time. So it's like Guitar Hero, but it's a synthesizer of psyops, and they'll just like play one, and it'll be like a little bit of this psyop later, a little more 9/11, and they'll do that over vast periods of time with all these stupid little drum snare psyops that they keep hitting in a melodic order, and we're there just like hypnotized by it. That's how this shit works.
And then they can throw a couple pipes underneath the car, pull it out, and say, "We thwarted a terrorist attack."
Yeah, beep, 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 beep. And like a different like register on the psyop like symphony that they're doing over time.
Literally, somebody behind it going beep beep beep, beep with his mouth, and like, "Well, we stopped it." It reminds me of the entrapment cases that you see a lot, where they find someone, they radicalize them online with these OCEs, online covert employees, which are undercover FBI agents that go into Discord and other places, and they find lonely people who need direction, and they say, "Can you believe what the world's done to you? Meet me over here. Here's a bomb." As soon as they hand them the bomb, they arrest them and say they thwarted a terror attack after they've kind of convinced them they need to do something, which is what I wonder about this case here with Charlie Kirk and the guy that they are saying they're charging with doing it. What are your thoughts on the Charlie Kirk assassination and just the aftermath thus far?
I have not done my due diligence on the various different breaking down of all the clips. Some people being like, no, this guy shot him from this angle with this thing and this, and like all of those different things. And I've seen like mild things from public coroner. And so it's a very vast and elaborate thing that's happening in and of itself. I'm almost kind of just staying out of it just because of, more of that's going to happen. And then it'll eventually get concisely edited down to something that's like 5 to 15 minutes. And I won't have to go through the ups and downs of the next like week or 2 weeks or blah, 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 blah. But then you got to wonder about things like, JD Vance be like stepping in order to be able to host things, and Shapiro being all like, it's cool, I'll pick up that tour for you, bro. And
the
so you got to wonder.
Mic is what he said. He said you pick up the bloody mic that Charlie Kirk left behind, which I thought was a little...
Yeah. I mean, like and then the crying over the casket thing by the wife. And it's just like, there's a lot of really socially clumsy, seated Valhalla, bro. And it's like,
that was a little weird.
That's a weird one. And then it's like the picture on the screen next to the dude. If you go there, there's like a military installation, and there's a place called Valhalla there. So it's like there's all these weird overlaps for things. Are they farts in reality? Are they hiccups in our sanity? Does it matter ultimately? Is it distraction? Is it a real autonomous thing that happened? Was it an assassination by a nation state? Was it an entire stage show that was there from the beginning and we all just bought into it in the build up to this event? I have no fucking idea, man. But it's one of those things where like, what is the scope? What are the stakes? And where are they going to take it from here?
Yeah. One of the things that has struck me about this case is the overwhelming amount of information that has at first been wrong or second or third hand sourced, and people just want to run with the one that satisfies them. And so you hear things over and over again. So it feels like it's been confirmed. You find out it hasn't been confirmed. First the FBI was wrong about like the first 3 things they said. And it just makes you so confused. It's like, unless you are latching on to the thing that you want to be true, if you're trying to actually decipher the truth, it just makes you go crazy because there's nothing that you feel like you can actually confirm. And I think that's probably intentional. Like, to me, I stopped. I couldn't scroll up on my phone. I'm wanting to see what time's the Georgia Tech game, and then every 2 things I scroll up to, I see blood shooting out. It's just the worst image, and it's inescapable. And people keep looking at it, and people keep sharing out. I mean, I think I think he's dead. I think the event happened. The story about how it played out, I'm skeptical of. Right before we started the show, I thought that it was going to be him. He's going to actually be going to court later. His first court appearance, it was the prosecutor, I guess the district attorney for Utah County, who came out and announced the charges and did reveal some of the information that they say they found. Now, like they found some DNA evidence on a towel, some DNA evidence on a screwdriver from the top of the building. They say this kid's DNA, and then they say they found some DNA on the trigger of the gun they found that was wrapped in a towel in the woods, but they don't have the bullet. So connected, that's a chain of custody thing, connecting the bullet to that gun. They say they have a bullet casing inside the gun, which I think they're implying is, I guess it got jammed would be the implication, but that could have been put there. But then they came out with this other information where saying he sent text messages to his roommate / boyfriend who's transitioning, and that he said, look under it's this whole text exchange where he's like, look under the desk. There's a letter where he's confessing to say they keep saying apparently confessing. Like they say apparently he appears to confess, which is always weird to me when they say they have evidence of something, then they say appears to confess. Well, does he or does he not? You know, does he appear to confess or does he confess in the letter? And he's pleading. He's not cooperating right now. He's pleading not guilty according to what we're told, but who knows? He hasn't actually pled yet. But they say that his roommate is cooperating, that his dad, who was a police officer, is cooperating, and that he said that he killed Kirk because there's too much hate and that he planned it for a week. So this kid's 4.5 hours away. He only spent a week planning it, was able to plan this kind of escape route, know where Kirk would be, get on the. It's all very not clear cut, and of course it's not going to be clear cut. It's a fog of war. But the DNA evidence, this is rapidly collected DNA, which is useful for cops to get a charging document, but is not very useful in a trial. The regular type of DNA, which takes weeks to get there, that's more effective at trial, although it's losing effectiveness because DNA overall is proving not to be the greatest evidence. I can see why his lawyer might recommend pleading not guilty if he's going to have the death penalty on the table, because there's a lot of holes that I see in the official narrative. But like that narrative to me, that's kind of being ran with by the media, seems to be more intended to make the country tear each other apart. Like all the divisiveness around Trump and Kamala and leading up to the election and whatnot, I never felt like there was going to be a situation where people who I know who are on opposite sides of the aisle might actually come to blows. But when it comes to this subject, because of how visceral it was, I feel like this could be the one that could at least start the process of breaking friends and families apart that might not would have otherwise. Have you noticed in your circle online or just in real life this affecting people?
Sorry, what's up?
I was going to say it's in a stronger way than it has some of the past.
I mean, I understand what you're talking about in this. It feels like a more raw, emotional, and vulnerable story because it's just one brief moment that you see on repeat over and over, and then it triggers everyone in their own particular way. And then you see the stories on Twitter about it being celebrated and all these different kind of things. And then that pulls at the heartstrings all the more, and you feel personally attacked. And is that kind of like adding to a Yuri Bezmenov kind of demoralization campaign of the nation at large so that it will control demolition? Yeah, it's very much an ongoing thing. And society is fundamentally being torn at the seams. So anytime one of these things happen, you can look at, like, if you've ever lost a relative, a lot of the times you won't necessarily process that until another loss later on. And that can be another person, or it can be like a pet. A lot of the time, we won't even necessarily process grief until something else happens. So they can get away with a lot of things, and then they'll give us kind of like a brief little hiccup catharsis. And then that's the thing where it's like, all right, they're good for a little while. We can go back to like organized crime, depravity, and
right.
Then give them one of these things, and they'll snap for a little bit, and then they'll snap into place.
Right. What do you think about? So the reaction on it, and this is the extremes. It seems like it's the normal reaction because that's what goes viral on social media on the left and right. Most people don't have these reactions, but on kind of the I don't want to say extreme right, but the big influencer right, it's kind of the this is war attitude, and that has so far played out in the let's make a database, canceling everybody who is making videos celebrating it. And on the left, it's people making videos celebrating it. What are your thoughts on this kind of database people on the right are making to cancel?
I mean, like, Kathy Lee Griffin, whatever her name is, orange-haired lady who's not a particularly good comedian, but she did the Trump's head like thing. It's like that's a lot more vulgar as far as just like a mocking parody calling for the death of, albeit he wasn't actually dead. If he was actually dead and she did that shit, maybe it'd be a little bit more of a hardcore reaction. Point is the artistic lens through which you two D's laughs. I don't.
D's laughs says Teace is the best. I didn't mean to interrupt you. So nice meeting you at Third Eye Carnival.
You also, fellow human. Crap. Sorry, I was saying that. Okay, but free speech. Point is like you're allowed to be vulgar in artistic portrayals. You're allowed to technically go out there and be as much of a douchebag as you want to be. Blah 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 blah. That's called being an asshole. An asshole isn't a violation of natural law. Natural law is the baseline that we're supposed to hold our standards to. So this is one of those things where ideally we would have etiquette, because a lot of people see how nice you're being as the equivalent of if you're a good person, and that's one of those dynamics where it factors into it hugely. It's not like if you're having perfect manners as you're like pushing a button to kill a bunch of poor people. It doesn't matter if you had your pinky up, It's like that's like it. So etiquette and good person, both. It needs to be both. And this is one of those situations I would also recommend that as well. Be tactful. I've seen a lot of people go out there and basically make contentions that it wasn't even a real thing, that he was wearing like squibs and that it was, one of those things. And so it's like, even if you're picking apart as an alleged completely fabricated psyop, and I'm not contending one way or the other, it's like, even then try and have respect while doing it, because it's one of those like geared to erupt social dynamics.
Yeah, it's certainly prime, especially right after that video of the girl on the subway train in North Carolina where she was stabbed. Yep. And if you saw that whole video, it's also very gory. That feels like 6 months ago. That happened a week before the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Yeah, but it's like we'd really almost need to see a collaborated, and this isn't going to happen because it's a pain in the ass, and we're ultimately living by clickbait algorithms in a Twitter kind of sphere sort of environment. But it's like you'd almost want to see like the output for incidents of crime in the likeness of something that transpires like in that geographical region or on a national basis, and then just think of like, okay, well, that happened 5 times this month. How often does something like that ultimately
happen? And that's the question you ask. That's the question, in my opinion.
That's one of those things. Is like, all right, well, if we actually saw it for what it was, what would we do? But we don't work that way. We're going off of the propaganda of what the algorithm creates as an environment that we then exist in. And then we go out there and we thrive off of talking about the same things. That's why I know what you're talking about when you say, how about this thing that happened? It's like, yeah, I already know that. How about this thing that already happened? Okay, what about all the ones that are just like that we don't know happened? Right. And if we heard, we wouldn't care about, because it wasn't what everyone else was talking about,
Right. It's what gets chosen to be focused on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is usually chosen because it serves an agenda. This is the thing we're going to agree to feature. Now this video of both of them were awful to see. And what bothered me about the video of this girl, along with what a horrible thing to happen to anybody, even the ones that it happens to where we don't see the video, is awful. It is the response to it. The initial video was short, and that was my first question. Is like, that video is cut off at a certain place. There's obviously longer video there, and the narrative around it wasn't just the awful thing. It was, look at all these other black people who sat there and did nothing. And that's what it seems like from that video, except there's one guy that stands up immediately and seems to walk out of frame, but you don't know what's out of frame. You don't see what's out of frame when you're just seeing that video. It seems like he's walking away. What that guy was actually doing was walking to the train conductor to tell him what happened and to tell him to stop the train. And the train did stop like 2.5 minutes later at the next place it could stop, and the police were waiting to arrest the guy right when he got off the train. So that guy wasn't running because he was a black guy who didn't care. He was running to go tell them what happened to try and get help. And then people said nobody did anything. First question is, there in that moment, to stop it would have been impossible because it happened so quickly. And I don't know what most people think they might have done. I think, you have the what's the guy's name? I don't know why I forget his name. The guy who helped the woman on the train who got charged for murder when he was just helping somebody recently, the former soldier. It'll come to me in a second.
I know who. Okay, you're not talking about the stranglehold guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, so yeah, all right, help someone, but
that guy helps somebody who gets charged, right? And then people don't get up and do anything, and the guy who stabbed her, it looks like he walks off and leaves. He didn't walk off and leave. He just walked right out of frame when you see the longer video, which is gone now. And he's still standing there. And there's people that are afraid. I'm not saying that justifies not helping, but somebody did actually go and help her. And the longer video that I saw, there's somebody with a shirt trying to stop the bleeding, and there's blood everywhere. And so I'm like, the story that it was just a bunch of black people sat around not helping her is just fueling this racial division, which actually they were helping her. Some of them did. And that's what I didn't like about the way that story was initially. Daniel Penny. Thank you, Courtney. Yeah, Daniel Penny. And that's the type of thing is like, tell the full story. Don't tell part of the story just because you have this agenda you want to drive. Tell the full story so that people stop fighting with each other because you're only telling things out of context so that people fight. And that to me is disingenuous. And maybe people, they did feel visceral and angry about what happened, and they didn't realize there was more to that context. But this idea that there's always more context to things, and the media always presents things out of context in a way that's manipulative. People need to drill that into their mind. That is the way the media works, and that's the way social media works, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It's just taking things out of context to mean the opposite of what is going on is one of the most insidious types of propaganda, because it's like lying with the truth, like the best way to tell lies to hide it in between two truths, as Edward Bernays, I say Edward Bernays, but as X-Files, which is not the same as Edward Bernays, even close, but that's what the X-Files said. So yeah, here's Pam Bondi, and people are sharing this clip around, but some people are saying, oh, she misspoke. She later corrected herself. But I don't know that she did. I think she might have said what she meant, honestly.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle. There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Okay, so that's just repeating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she came out later and kind of clarified, but didn't really clarify. And she said other stuff like that before. And that's where, to me, this has appeared like it's been going for a little while, is if you somehow if you go after, with the government, with the law, people who celebrated Charlie Kirk's death, which I think I said on the show the other day, I think if you're doing that, you better check your information that leads you to believe that to justify your actions, and you need to look into your heart and your soul and find something better to spend your time doing. I think people doing that are missing something in their life. I think that's one of the most awful things anybody could do for anybody who dies personally. If people are religious, and what would Jesus do? Jesus wouldn't celebrate anybody's death. Jesus would pray for his enemies, even the ones who pinned him to the cross. And you see just the opposite reaction by many Christians there. And I understand the idea of, well, they keep getting away with stuff, but and this is on the right, people who are saying let's cancel them all. Pray for those people. If you're on there, pray for those people who did those awful things. It's their soul that's rotting from just there's people that I know who I was so saddened by on Facebook who made posts, and the justifications were things that were not true. and easily disprovable. And I'm like, I know they're good people, but they've gotten so consumed and propagandized by the media that they're now doing something that is just really like, it's not you. It's not you. And I just, people need to take a break, and people need to look in the mirror. Maybe all of us, but Pam Bondi here, if you criminalize the act of celebrating someone's death like that, it wouldn't just apply to him. It would apply to other people. And then if you categorize that under hate speech, then you can also clump it together with anti-Semitism and anything else called hate speech. And all of a sudden you're criminalizing anti-Semitism, which we know it's pretty much anything that questions Israel at this point. It's very vaguely applied. And that's it's like the slippery slope, the speed at which the slope can be slippery, if that makes any sense, I think has gotten much, much faster with social media. I don't think she made a mistake. What are your thoughts on what she said?
Yeah, they've turned the slippery slope into a viscous clusterfuck designed to have a house of cards and domino set alike fall down on all of us. Yeah,
it's like crazy.
That's what they've lined up. I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, they'll basically just do wiggle room trial balloon dynamics on a full spectrum a full spectrum dominant stage to try and enact a technocratic agenda in the long term. And that's like what the next 5 to 10 years is. Whatever the hell they need to pull, however they need to frame things in order to get people who normally wouldn't support it actually be willing to finally actually bend over for it. And that's
beg for it.
Yeah. And I think that one way or another, they're ultimately going to get it. The question is if you can reveal the bad guys and what they're doing it for in the interim. Like, I think they're going to get whatever these technocratic systems are, whether it's from a centralized mandate of like a evil government, we're going to do it, or if it's people literally just deciding to wear stuff. And because they're wearing stuff, it happens around them, you know? So it's gonna be like, there's gonna be this technocratic thing that emerges in like civilized, industrialized society. That's gonna happen. It is. How is that going to happen? Do we reveal the evil assholes who built it? Because if we don't, a whole lot more people are gonna die because of it. Because these little propaganda things, it's like they actually add up to not only energy wasted in an individual's life, but that's energy that we needed applied in a way that it needed to be applied so that other people could stop living the lie. The more people who live the lie, the more people who die. I call it gaslight gas chamber. That's what we exist in, is that kind of environment. And so that's one of those things. Really, it fundamentally comes down to, do people understand that there's a call to action in all of this? That it isn't just like being passive recipients. It's, we inform ourselves, and then we try and get the people out there who don't understand that this thing is being built to peel back the emotional sentiment that otherwise is just going to see us react, and then we're going to do nothing because we don't have any energy left. So it takes away the energy that we're supposed to put into the call to arms on behalf of humanity, but most people are so at each other's throat that they're just in the corner of the ring in between rounds. That's where they are.
And they don't even know what's happening because they're so spun up on their emotions and their hate of the other side, and which, as you said, causes people to, because they hate so much the other side, to go along with whatever the leaders on their side do. I think people who celebrated Kirk's death, I think most of them probably weren't like the first movers on that. The way that this works on social media is you have a big influencer who models the behavior. This is what we're doing and how we're reacting. The language, the video. I haven't looked to see which of the big influencers were the ones that launched that off, but then that tells everybody else what they can then do to potentially go viral and get rewarded with that virality and then likes and shares. And they say, okay, I can make this video, and then they mimic the same thing their influencer leader on their side does, and that's their reward system. And then on the right is the reward system is finding those videos and sharing those videos and saying, look who this person is, find this person and out this person, and that's their reward system for going viral. And so it's this reinforcing cycle that's going to only continue to cause people to do this based on the reward system that social media sets up. It's crazy.
Yeah, you can almost take, like, as a play on words. I'm not necessarily saying, like, I'm not advocating for this new age. Hello, Chris. I'm not advocating for this new age perspective necessarily, but it's almost like digital algorithm that, think of how our brain is just an electrical signal, kind of, it's like it flares up that in us in a way that makes it so that it's almost like an emotional matrix. So they've created like this emotional matrix in our minds that flares up within us in response to these little things. And yeah, it's a special kind of war, because I remember, for like bringing it back to the humor dynamic and trying to use that to wake up people, I'd used this joke for one of my episodes of Conspiracy Synergy one time about the play on words for Fauci. We called him Foul-Chi. It's like like evil soul, basically. It was, I thought it was pretty funny play on words. But anyway, I had to like his face on like an emperor dragon thing. I didn't give him squinty eyes, but it's like I showed it to a friend of mine, and it's like he was sensitive because he kind of woke. He was sensitive to the whole racism thing. So he took it like it was racist, even though it's not a racist joke. It's a cultural clarification for an obscure term, Foul-Chi. A lot of people wouldn't get that.
He saw it as racist to Asians or something. Is that what?
Yeah, something like that. The point is like a lot of people, their emotional matrix is because they've been worn thin in a particular way that applies to them and those around them. So if you know someone who's like, someone's been mean to them that week by a bully, you're going to be more sensitive to bullies. At the exact same time, oh, by the way, they're actually part of this mass murder campaign, and that's more important. But they don't get that because they're sensitive to the particular thing that's being poked. Yeah.
Yeah, they're distracted. They're conditioned to see racism and everything, so they're distracted in what the actual point is.
And they react to those little things like they're the big things. Then they react to the big things like they're little things.
Yeah, it's like I call like the words they use to trigger these certain things. I call them language landmines, because as soon as you hit one of those words that triggers it, the conversation's over. They've gone into the lizard brain type of stuff. When it comes to the outing of people who are celebrating and contacting their bosses with this database people have made. Personally, if I might go into a doctor or dentist or somebody, and there's the local nurse or doctor a couple of miles from me is one of the ones who lost their job, I would rather know. I would rather be able to look up this doctor that I'm going to see if they made certain videos or celebrations about Charlie Kirk dying, because I would probably choose another doctor. Just in case they were happen to know that I do a show about conspiracies or something, or somehow find out my views. I wouldn't want them to be in secret having those views, and you know what I mean? When I'm going to be in a vulnerable position.
So here's how this works. They create the social environment that then we want the technological apparatus to be afforded to us so that we can then navigate that social environment.
Right.
So they've created a social environment of whitewater rapids, basically. And our flotation device that they're going to throw everyone is, here are these coordinated AI assistant kind of like algorithm ciphers. So think like you can have your AI whatever, and it can prime you on available public knowledge for someone. And the more people who use more of this, the more public knowledge is available to the network of the people who use it. It's a simple way of allowing technology to be available to people who will then, of their own volition, become the hive mind. That's sort of what I meant when I was describing that one way or another, these sorts of things are going to unfold. Okay, think about that plus wearables. Like you can be recording things, individually clipping things. Okay, what if you're basically a facet of this hive mind AI algorithmic output so that your wearables can basically plug into what's needed by the machine? That means that if a woman leaves her house, she could potentially be being watched by everyone who had one of these things on. Okay, let's say that this isn't necessarily a public, easily accessible like Pokemon Go kind of thing. Let's say that this is how it already works in one way or another on a certain strata of information warfare. Okay, well then on that level, doesn't that mean that who you meet, who you talk to, the words they use, the phrases, et cetera, and so forth are literally just a functional extension of controlled algorithmic micromanaged ecosystems that apply to every single person? That's more of where we're at with the actual lay of the land. The question is, can you get people to understand not only that is the lay of the land, but you have to go through like layers of sediment. And what sediment is the fossilized shit that has like rained down on us from each of these psyops over and over again. So you got to go through those psyops in order to get to the nuance of what's actually going on a fossilized layer. And that's kind of the thing that I was touching on there.
That's why I love you, Teace. That was so it was beautifully spoken. You're fighting against this layer of psyops that you're like you're digging to this fossilized in their brain, which I can't say like you did. You said it beautifully. You said it beautifully. But yeah, I could picture it when you say that. Is like
Okay, yeah, sure.
you're digging through to because you got to like show this thing and then that thing piece by piece because people have this worldview that they believe that it is based on this layer after layer after layer of lies. Like a psyop within a psyop within a psyop, as some people say, and you gotta start with one little piece because they dismiss and they say, well, if that's not true, well, this is true, and because cognitive dissonance will take over. But it is effective, though. It is effective for me having one-on-one conversations and sending people short bites of information and more humorous information, like you're putting out. To people like there's people think that the other side won't listen or whatever the other side is to them. They will. There are more that will listen and have a conversation that will not. It just appears like there are less because of social media. That's why I love things like the Third Eye Carnival. Yeah.
Did you ever play Skyrim or a lockpick game?
No. A what game?
Okay, well, in Skyrim.
Oh, yes.
And you're trying to lockpick, and you're just wiggling this little.
Right.
Everyone has their stupid wiggle room area of receptivity to this shit. Everyone does. It's like if they like music, okay, maybe it's the Diddy thing. If it's a Diddy thing, that'll overlap with who did Diddy, stuff like that.
Right.
And so it's one of those things where it's like I like to think that everyone has their little micro niche of sensitivity, and you have to find that receptivity and work within it in order to lockpick their psyche, basically. So go forth and try that, people.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it is. And it helps when you know exactly what they're going to say.
Yeah.
and all you got to do is look at social media and whether intentionally or unintentionally, usually I'm sure they probably don't know, it seeps into their unconscious and they spit it out. And I'm just like, oh God, I got that script in my email from Indivisible today, which has happened to me a number of times. There's these activist groups, there's one called Indivisible. I've been going to their online trainings for years and like doing videos on the things that they instruct people. They literally give people scripts and they simplify the process of, for example, of calling your congressman. It'll be like, alert, fascism taking over, Hitler, Trump, blah, blah, blah. We must call and say this agenda items. To make it simple, here's it. What's your zip code? You put in your zip code and it gives you a clickable button. And you click the button and the call comes right up on your computer screen and then a script pops up for you to read. It's crazy. And then when I hear somebody I know like reading that script, I'm like, oh, you must have gone to that Indivisible training I went to. And it's just, it's wild though. It gets reinforced. Like Rachel Maddow has been promoting that group since 2017 and the talking points. So it's just a matter of watching the media, the clips, and hearing the repetitiveness of the language. And then it becomes unthinking. And it's like, what does that mean? And I find myself sometimes saying, for example, I had tubes in my ears as a kid. I know that affects my hearing. I've been saying that my whole life. But I was thinking the other day, because my ears bother me again, and I was like, what does it even mean to have tubes in your ears? I don't even know what that. I know I had them. I know it affects my hearing. But what does that even mean? On a practical level, what was that like? And where was my hearing actually as a kid? And I started looking into it more, and I was like, I've known this thing about myself, but I haven't really known this thing about myself for my entire life until recently. And I think some of the things that we and people who, especially people who consume media wholesale, I don't think they even know what they're saying at the time. You know what I mean? I think they do, because I've never met anybody who's like, no, I'm just unthinkingly saying some shit. They all think that they have come to this conclusion in a rational, well thought out way. When they haven't, they clearly have not. Indivisible Indivisible is very unwatchable because they they are very good at casting the right characters to deliver certain messages to different groups. And the Indivisible lady looks like a mouse, and the Indivisible, it's a husband, it's a couple. It's a little mousy looking lady, and it's her husband who looks like he's gay and has AIDS. It's perfect for the crowd that he's speaking to. It really is. I'm not being derogatory. I'm saying that's what they look like. when you look at them. And Elon Musk started finally promoting some of the stuff they were doing because they were leading the anti-Tesla stuff, which kind of faded to the back after Elon stepped out of politics a little bit. But so Kash Patel, in the other news going on today, he's testifying about this and the Epstein stuff. What are your thoughts on Kash Patel?
I mean, like on an individual basis, I don't really know a lot of like who's on first for the
Right.
bureaucratic appointments of FBI directors or blah 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 blah. I don't know like the is his girlfriend a Israeli spy, all those kind of I find that like the way I look at these various different systems is what were they functionally set up to do. It's like I don't care what the head sump pump is. It's like I care what the factory is doing and why it's been built that way. It's like the terror factory of the FBI, which was built on a variety of different honeypots over time in order to compromise the nations, infuse it with another splinter nation that isn't a real country overseas that actually pulls the strings back here at home. So it's one of those things where it looks like you're following like those kind of like gigantic ass motherfuckers that are then later appointed into a system that only sees them as a fall guy at most. It's kind of hilarious where that's so I look at that guy and I'm just like, I don't know you, dude, but I see what you've been placed on. And if that thing vibrates, that's what happens to you. And if you don't vibrate the way it wants you to, then you're just this thing that goes another direction. And then that's all she wrote. Yeah.
It's like the idea that you can come in and control the machine that's done nothing but control people is nobody's been able to successfully do it yet. Right?
It's like watching someone on a fucking like mechanical bull ride for an institution that itself is like a different kind of bull taking us for a ride.
Yeah, that's a great way to look. And Kash Patel ain't staying on that bull. It's throwing him around. He's too tiny.
Yeah,
and so you probably don't vote, if I had to guess.
No, man, voting's profoundly wrong. Profoundly.
No,
wrong.
I don't. I've been my whole thing has been get out the don't vote for years.
No, for everyone who still votes, you're in essence lending your energetic participatory engagement into an illegitimate slave state that outputs democide proportion to your participation. So don't do that. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So we are lying on our ideas on voting for sure. It's just like people, can't have an opinion if you don't vote. I'm like, that's like the oldest propaganda in the book is to try and shame people for not voting.
It's like, all right, give me your food. I'm going to eat most of it. Lick one of my boots. That determines what kind of gruel you get from the remains. That's sort of what the whole thing is.
Yeah, and we've pick a punch in the face or kick in the balls.
It's going to be both, and they're going to take your keys.
Right.
That's more of where we're at right now. It's not just people on their knees. It's what can you get them to do once they're on their knees. That's more where we're at with the whole like system and escalation of depravity, which is why it's like the conversation surrounding institutions like the FBI and individuals like Patel and like the roles that they play as people when they're shoved into these vibrating machines that make it look like the dance that they do is important. It's like, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's like a win is people understanding like you do that not voting is actually an important thing. It's not an unimportant thing. And so it's like, it's difficult to bring yourself back to a hopeful outlook on wins like that at the exact same time as like landscapes of emotional sabotage. Because we're just going to go out there and talk about, the thing that happened this week with whoever it is gets assassinated next. And that's the other thing. Are they trying to set a precedent this way? Is it going to become something where it's just like escalating emotional heartstrings being pulled in a fake civil war, even if it's not a real one? Because, it's like one of those things. It's like we've got the scope of optics that they've given us. But if they're literally trying to use systems this advanced to play us, wouldn't they make it a multi-season unveiling of things that are just going to connect one after the next? Isn't that how it already works? Isn't that what we should expect? So at what point do we literally just stop saying, okay, the conversation surrounding these individual dancing cogs, let's take that conversation away and instead we'll put on our own performance, and not in a way in which we're lying. We're more pointing to the machine, not the stage that's happening on the thing, but pointing to the levers so that people just don't believe it anymore, and that's something that I think is happening more and more.
Yeah, the levers are what pulling people are turned against each other, and that's what I have been worried about since this happened, especially since in the aftermath, on the night that it happened, there was a vigil in Idaho that some provocateur went there. His goal to go there was to trigger the crowd into committing violence against him, knowing that the police would be there to rescue him, because he could then go and do what all people who in these situations do, these provocateurs, these activists, start a GoFundMe, start something to say, look, I'm a victim. Let me raise all this money. Look how all of the people over there are exactly as we always knew they were. They attacked me. Showing it out of context, whatever videos he has. But he goes and rides like a little scooter into this Charlie Kirk vigil, and he's shouting F Charlie Kirk, and he's just provoking them. And a couple of them were triggered, and then it ended up being like a group of people surrounding him, kicking him on the ground, like beating the shit out of him. And then inevitably, the police came over, and they broke it up, and they pulled the guy. Had the cops not been there, they might have killed the guy. Fortunately, they did not, but that's exactly what he wanted them to do, even though what he did was awful. I mean, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But he got out of them what he wanted so he could portray them as what he's always told the people who follow him believe that they are, the fascists, the authoritarians, whatever. And we've seen some stompings and memorials. I think I've seen 3 now in the past couple of days. That's when you start to worry that it's going to bubble. And those are probably provocateurs sent there to do that. And what I tell people about that is, if you've ever had a girlfriend or boyfriend who, when you broke up, they would show up to where you are, maybe bring a date with them, because maybe they have a friend telling you where you're hanging out, and they're just going there to try and get a reaction out of you. They're just trying to antagonize you and get a reaction out of you. If you react to that, they're going to keep doing it because that is the control they have over you. If you do not react to that and it does not affect you, then it stops because their strategy has failed. And that's when the X stops provoking you. In this case, I know when people are getting right in front of people and almost instigating the violence themselves, it becomes a little bit more difficult. But the action is in the reaction is what Saul Alinsky, Bernays always talks about with propaganda. And with the awareness that we're surrounded by activists on either side, really, depending on what the situation is, I think right now it's important that people really, they keep their wits about themselves and they really get their breathing under control and they're tolerant. Like if you're too emotional to not be able to withstand the provocations that are going to come, maybe stay away from group events, until you are. That's the way I feel about it anyway. All right, one more thing, and then we'll get out of here. So you are a documentarian and a filmmaker. And I noticed this story today, HBO Max to air first scripted series depicting the Hamas October 7th attack on Israel. Now, I think it really goes without saying that the attack on October 7th is terror. I don't like when anybody dies, personally. I think it's all awful. And everybody has their beliefs about leading up to it and stand-down orders and whatnot. But I think it's probably pretty clear that this is going to tell a very, very one-sided, provocative, propagandistic angle of it. What are your thoughts when you see documentaries like this? That documentaries give the air of truth to them. You know what I mean? Just the fact that they're documentaries, but they often are very one-sided.
It says first scripted series. So is that a documentary?
It's not even a documentary. You're right. I'm retarded. You're right. Yeah, it's a scripted series. I guess since it's based on the real event, that's why I assume that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as a filmmaker, I understand how powerful filmmaking is. And like, if I actually had resources, if people actually supported me and knew what I do and actually watched my work and realized that, oh wait, that's actually really good. And even me who thought I understood that could actually send that to people and then they could understand that. And then once they understand that, we'd all understand enough in order to be able to build alternative things together. Yippee-ki-yay, let's go, motherfucker, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's supposed to be one of those things where filmmaking is supposed to save the world. Instead, we get very emotionally charged shit like this, which comes out to custom tailor a filmmaking lens to a real phenomena that we were all lied to about. When you get into how bad October 7th was, not only was it allowed to happen, it was set up to happen in a fake country that we called Israel because it's so fake that they had to in order to get us to believe in it. And its very creation is the long-form machinations of a deeper, more sinister thing that uses apocalypse porn as kind of like the trigger to have everyone march to the same script moving forward. That's sort of like the dynamic that we exist in. So the people who control the media apparatus that paint the picture for everyone to live their lives by, hey, imagine that. They're powerful enough to create their own fake country as a bomb to eventually erupt and set the entire region off in a greater Israel project. And they want you to feel as the catalyst for that eruption. That's how this whole thing goes. So it's like propaganda is almost like gunpowder in a way, and the fuse has been lit.
Right. Yeah. So the thing about the biblical angle of this being exploited, which I how you exactly said it, I don't remember exactly, but you said I think you referenced the use of the Bible and faith, at least for when it comes to Christian Zionism, to get people who wouldn't otherwise go along with certain things that Israel does to support them kind of blindly.
Yeah.
For example, there's many people who voted for Trump on one issue, and that issue being abortion. And yet Israel has some of the most liberal abortion policies on the planet. They allow you to get an abortion up to 6 months, really no questions asked, and it's state funded. And even after that, you can request approval. So you can get abortions, no questions asked, 6 months, state funded, and you can get even beyond that with approval, which it's often approved from my research. And it's not even something that's hidden. And yet the same people who voted for Trump because of Trump's position on abortion, and they wanted to prevent what the progressives wanted to bring about with abortion, now support Israel. Meanwhile, the progressives hate Israel. I'm like, this is weird. It's bad. It's completely opposite now. And then when you look at the transgender thing, transgenders are allowed in sports in Israel. Transgenders are not only allowed in the military in Israel, their transgender reassignment surgery is paid for by the government in Israel. And there's many Mossad agents who have been transgender. Some of them are well known for their work throughout the years. The exact opposite of what Trump supporters voted for, and exactly what progressives voted for. And Tel Aviv is considered like the LGBTQ capital of the world. It's often been referred to that. So it's just when people are saying things about Israel, like I was told, that's why I started looking into some of their policies. Somebody told me that they align. We have to support them because they represent our values. I'm like, wait, what? And then I look into it, and I'm like, I don't know that they do. Which ones are you talking about? This is the opposite of some of the things. And I'm not saying my position with Israel and all that is, like you mentioned earlier, there's stuff going on everywhere around the world that we don't know about that is just as awful. And if there was a way to snap our fingers and end all murder and killing and bring harmony in the world, I think that pretty much all of us would do that. So our attention is focused on this because of the connections and the money that's sent to. My position is always, I don't want my money going to Ukraine, or tax money, to support the war going on over there, just like I don't want our money going to Israel to support a war. Then people automatically go, what are you, Hamas? I'm like, no, we're not funding the other side of that war. If we were, I would also not want it going there. Although you could say that maybe we are because we give Bibi Netanyahu money, who actually was funding Hamas through Qatar right up until the war started. And so it's like the use of biblical prophecy to get people to, without question, support the opposite of what they had previously supported when it comes to those on the right is extraordinary. And I'm not questioning anybody's faith to point this out. I just, people have their faith, and I'm not trying to say that it's not true, because there are actually Christians who have a different interpretation of the Bible that are like, no, we don't support any of this. So there's these two interpretations of the Bible, of Revelations, and I don't know enough about this to articulate what they both are, so I apologize for that. But I know that there are opposing views of it in the Christian community. And yet one of them has exploited the faith to support the Christian Zionism based on the modern state of Israel. And the other, they oppose what they're doing, or at least question it. And I just think it's extraordinary that the use of one of multiple interpretations of the Bible has been able to create an unquestioning faith because they believe to bring about the prophecy of Revelations. Even if Bibi Netanyahu is an awful, awful person, God put him there to bring about that prophecy. And when you get to that, it's like, just what else can you ask? What questions can, other than is your interpretation of the Bible right? I'm not saying this well because I've just been getting into this stuff lately, but I find it kind of fascinating. What are your thoughts?
I mean, so once again, it's kind of like the scope of intrigue for the level of problem. A lot of people can make the contention that the monotheistic religions are just contemporary versions of astrotheological cults, and that they were created as political tools in order to keep the masses within an exoteric constraint. So think of like they're playing with the Lego kit car of a Lamborghini, where the people who created that Lego car kit of the Lamborghini are out driving the real one. That's kind of like the comparison between the exoteric version and the esoteric version. You can think of people who drive the wheel of esoteric versions via the wheel that is the Kabbalah and the insight that it offers everyone. And that gives you kind of a further insight to the kind of like tiers of people that I'm alluding to. So it's one of those things where once you're viewing things on different levels of points of view, at a certain point, you can go to that which isn't even physical anymore. It becomes metaphysical. It becomes the principles that are governing in the very realm we all exist in, the law. So that's like from the tarot, which is studied alongside of the Kabbalah, that's sitting at the top in the macrocosmic tree. That's because it's the law. It's the creator. It is the determinant of what renders, what happens, what manifests here on earth, what happens as a result of our collective actions in humanity. Anywho, if you're a part of a moral relativist institution like this, like defunct government bullshit that we were all born in, we're inevitably going to poop out system after system after event where we're vying for supremacy of the outcome for illegitimate, like, let's say, moral relativist things that happen in the first place. So we're vying for supremacy of the conversation about things that shouldn't be happening. That's the very simple version of what I'm saying. We're vying for supremacy of the outcomes of things that shouldn't be happening. But what we're ultimately supposed to do is to shift the system so that those outcomes don't keep happening. That premise of an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. You know, so it's one of those things where it's like, I continue to come back to wondering if that's supposed to be our role as the alternative media. It's like, what are your thoughts on it? Just like playing with that ball, that role. It's like, where do you think we're supposed to go from here as our ability to have a conversation gets more difficult? And you could look at it one of two ways. Either the biblical script is going to be used as an emotional plot point where they're literally going to like go over the edge with it. Or they can potentially use those of us who have been conspiracy theorists as almost like the Trojan horse people who are just doing the things that we tried to learn along the way. Like, how much of us trying to get truth out there at a certain point just becomes a play in the game, you know, because it's going to go one way or the other, biblical script or off the road improv script from all these conspiracy theorists that they've been slowly like creating for decades, going back to 9/11 and before. I think it's kind of like that, you know, but I just wanted to ask what your thoughts on that are.
Well, I think that asking questions, as long as it's respectful, especially of people that you're close to, and you try to avoid those language landmines. But I don't think a lot of people are as affected. Not everybody's as affected by those as at least people that I know. Most people I can have good conversations with. But so I do think that having a discussion about, you know, the belief in biblical prophecy and what I do is I always inject whenever there's a moment. I'll be like, yeah, you know, just like Jesus said, abortion until 6 months. I'll say something like that, you know, and then it's just like, you know, and then they'll laugh because they get what I'm saying. But they have actually some people I know have, friends of mine haven't, because of the conversations we have and because of how awesome people I know that they are. My conversation with them has inspired me to learn more about their position on the Israel situation, which I disagree with. And I have learned more about the alternative views of that, which align more with me as you know, Christian. And it's made me more knowledgeable, which has made me be able to form better questions. And I always think questions can lead to further knowledge. I think if we have if we think we know the end all be all, then we're no longer learning. We're no longer adapting. And for me, I think it's always good. I think even if they do plan for us conspiracy theorists, which I think mostly their plan for the conspiracy theorists is to discredit them one way or another, which is why I think we have to be better and more solid in our arguments and least likely to jump to conclusions because they're waiting for a reason to brand us all as the craziest conspiracy theorist. But I don't think they really have a solution for the questions that we can form and ask. I think those are always can be effective, which is why I think they are so aggressive about silencing any question that undermines the narrative in any avenue.
So, okay, that kind of answers my question. I guess, like, so you see it then as an inevitability of they're just going to keep rolling out psyops, keep playing this biblical script, and it doesn't even matter what happens with conspiracy theorists or whatever, because they're always going to be stamped on just enough to keep their message out, basically.
Well, I think that there is people who are. I think the alternative opinions about the prophecies and the interpretations of the Bible. I think those are coming forward more. So I think it's inevitable that they will always use faith. They will always use emotion. They will always use religion. It's in there. They will always use race. They will always use their toolkit of division and anything to short circuit the conversation. They will continue to use.
Totally. Okay. But I guess what I'm saying is like, I'm looking at this from like a great game, like great work, like outer wheel of time species shift level, which is more of like because I agree with everything that you're saying, because it's just like as you zoom out from something, you know, so it's like that's on that particular level. I'm thinking it's like, okay, well, are conspiracy theorists or whatever ever able to rally the conversation enough where they're able to get the wheel of the bitch, and then the establishment has to be like, oh fuck, now we got to go to this level of stupid psyop contingency. And then it becomes a different level of retarded. I think it's going to go more like that. That's what I'm trying to say, you know?
Well, I think it has gone a little bit. I think we've
kind
gone
of, but I mean like way more off the rails. I mean like fake alien invasion bullshit, like combined with biblical prophecy, like that kind of stuff, you know?
I think that this is their drawback with social media and our connectivity. So there's so many benefits to the internet for them: the ability to monitor, the ability to see, create psychological profiles linguistically across all these platforms, and get people's data, psychological profiling data and whatnot. But the downside to them is the ability to wake more people up at certain level after level, and it's I think it's always going to be a push and pull. I don't think there's ever going to be a clear winner one way or another. But yes, I do think we as conspiracy theorists will continue to have an impact, and they, as psychological psyop operators, will continue to go more aggressive. Now, what's the next strategy once you've gone so big that has been so cartoonish and it has become ineffective? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we'll get there. I think we're going to force them to continue having to go more and more aggressive. Like this. Yeah,
like it's going to get worse next is basically what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think so. That's probably what's going to happen. Yeah. I guess I wonder, like, I think most people aren't creative enough to actually hear a new thought. So it's like, hey, catch this. They're only going to catch the part that they already understood. And maybe like a little bit of the handle. Be like, oh, I see the handle there. I didn't catch it. I don't have a grip of it, but I'm able to look at something adjacent to what I already understood. And that's what they catch. So if you're out there throwing, it's like, this is people quick. They're tired very quickly. But it's like, so the thing that they're building for the most part are just like through systems, not through individuals. So yeah, they have this micromanaged like algorithmic control, and they're watching all of us as we evolve our understanding and all that kind of stuff. But like the scope of inquiry I'm looking at now is like, okay, all monotheistic religions and even new space religions like Scientology and Mormonism, you could argue, and all these different things. It's like they're different slivers of capturing people's religious, spiritual, natural effervescence. They want to keep that in different chambers. So dark occultists, the old religion, the nameless religion, created all of this shit. And it's a combination of truth and fiction. And the combination of truth and fiction keeps us in those cul-de-sac kind of like terrarium environments that we are groomed in a spiritual level, so that they, the alchemists who have done this in order to keep us from going to a level of esoterics, are able to preside in an occultic kind of technocratic environment moving in the next 5 to 15 years, whereby The mission of the alternative media is to understand all that shit I just said and pop those motherfucking bubbles so that people are able to move beyond the constraints of their previous view of things. Now, that's very difficult to do because the average fucking person isn't creative enough to understand what the fuck I just said, or to then apply that to their own life. Basically speaking in metaphor, it's like you're great at improv. It's like if you go out and try to do improv with someone who isn't in on the bit, they're not going to be able to do it. They're going to keep trying to logically clarify things, you know?
Yeah, right.
So if they took away the language of expression for what real revolution is, that's what I'm trying to get at. It's almost like that creativity and that playfulness that people need in order to be able to be handed an idea and run with it any direction than what the system has laid down track for them to go in.
And I think that they suck the creativity out. I think people are creative, but I think they keep them in these bubbles, as you said, and connected to these things that it programs them to focus on anything but creativity because of an inability to separate from these things that have captured their minds and hearts emotionally at a political level. One of the Bolshevik ideas, not just, I'm sure it's plenty of other ideas, is to politicize all of society so that anything can be used as a lever to divide people. And I think we're reaching that point. At least I think there's an attempt to. When people get creative, and this is probably why I'm able to have conversations with my friends where we don't get mad at each other, we disagree, but we can learn from each other, is because we're all improvisers, and we don't we don't get offended by things. We know each other, and we know everybody is good intentioned. I think the idea is to take all of that creativity and all of that recognition of good intention away and fill it with bad intention, scripted responses, and a sense of moral righteousness over the other side.
Yeah, and that's religion. Exactly the thing that you described. That's religion. And spirituality, which is the reality, is trapped inside those little bubbles of religion. And then that creates another environment above it, which is spiritualism, but that is still just egotism. And then above that, as you get to a further point of refinement, it's just observation. You're just watching that thing happen because it's almost like a slowly cooking soup of human consciousness. And then outside of that is right action when you're actually, no, wait, I need to actually make this happen in the correct direction or it's going to get really disgusting and suck. So that's when you're out there trying to wake people up, you know? So it's like, yeah, it is the process of all of us refining our purity as we try and get the truth out there to people and escape our bubbles that were created for us to brood in.
And I think when you're seeing people in person, like at the Third Eye Carnival, I think you really, even though a lot of people not agree about everything. In fact, I think people have disagreements, but everybody gets along well and they have conversation. I think that stuff is so important. And for me, people who are progressives, Republicans, Democrats, whatever they are, whenever we're together in person, while there might be disagreements, everybody there would do anything in the world for everybody. Like, they're all the people that I know they're really good people, despite the political views being very different, despite the social media. People, my friends in the theater community, only get mad at each other on social media because their personas on social media are so much more extreme than they are in real life, which I think is a contagion factor on social media. When in real life, it's like, if there's a problem, politics is out of it. Anybody would do anything for the other one. And that's where I found the most effective collective growth in productive conversations to happen.
Yeah, the way you described it, with it's like moral outrage combined with like a lack of creativity and doing the same thing as other people, that is the religious notion. You can apply that to money, you can apply that to government, you can apply that to the social dynamics that we exist in, whether they're formally drafted or something that we kind of like self-censor. You know, if you're around other people and you just want to get along with them, you know, it's like, what is that rigid religioso dynamic? That's the thing that keeps all of this going, and it'll continue to go the way that it's been going unless we just bring ourselves to a place where we can approach it in a different way.
Right. And the trust the science group, that's religion also.
Yeah. Scientism is a great example of religion. Yeah.
All right, Teace, always a great conversation. Like I said, you speak so eloquently, and I appreciate the work that you do. Tell everybody again where they can find you, and whatever else you want to, what closing message you want to deliver.
Yeah, so for the way that I talk, it's like I'm going into metaphors and esotericism. So there's a lot of like inferences for things that can throw people for a loop. So if that's not something you appreciate, I totally respect that. If you want to hear me speak regular ass sentences that the ordinary person can understand while using rabbit puppets and cartoons and shit like that, check out Conspiracy Synergy. That's at conspiracysynergy.com. The mini documentaries are also there, and it's all up in a value for value model. Please do support content creators, whether it's Brad, myself, or anyone else that you listen to. For the love of God, we make basically nothing, and we do a whole lot. And I do it full time, making documentaries, which I then give away for free. So please support me. Go watch those. I've already got 5 of them up. The next one I'm doing is on Mark Passio, and hopefully that'll be up in the next month. A little bit. It takes a lot out of me. Each one of these takes about a month and a half to 2 months in between filming and then editing. And that's just to get something that's between 15 to 30 minutes. And that's kind of like what this process entails, but they're really great. They tell the story of what we're all doing, what we're all trying to wake our friends and family up to, so that we aren't just in these religioso environments of reaction, but instead we're in an invigorated place of, let's say, taking action. And in that, we won't have to go through the apocalypse that they've set up for us. Fingers crossed, hopefully, knock on wood. I don't know. If they pull that shit next week, don't blame me. But that's the idea. Go to conspiracysynergy.com, get your friends and family to check that out, share it with their friends and family. You can also check me out on AM Wake Up on Wednesdays. I co-host that with Steve McCoynan, who was here earlier in the conversation. But he probably left after it stopped being about him.
All right. Thank you, Teace. Thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure. Let's do it again sometime. And thank you, everybody in the chat, for hanging out. And propagandafight.com. Links in bio on X at Freedom Act Radio on X. So we'll talk to you guys next time. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day.
That's it.
Peace.